A very good evening, everyone. Today, Hero Mind brings you an interesting session on demystifying blockchain technology. We have with us Nirupam Srivastav, VP Strategy and AI, Hero Enterprise, in a conversation with a special guest, Reena Dayal Yadav, Chairperson of the Board for Quantum Ecosystems and Technology Council of India, discussing one of the most disruptive technologies in modern digital economy. Reena Dayal Yadav, technology leader and an innovative management expert, is known for her work in establishing and scaling up innovation functions within organizations and for catching new waves of technology to incubate new technology-oriented businesses. With an engineering degree from IIT Roorkee, Ms. Yadav has several patents to her credit. And Nirupam is VP for Strategy, New Growth Areas, and Leveraging AI and Blockchain across various businesses. He is a management professional with experience in leading corporate and business strategy, mergers and acquisitions, corporate venture investments, launching internal ventures, new products, and new business models across geographies. I welcome you both. Over to you, Nirupam.
Thank you, Vasundhara, for the warm welcome, and again, welcome to Reena for joining us today with a mind learning session on demystifying blockchain. So as we all know, friends, blockchain has been the word which has taken over most of the communication and the discussion today we have. Of course, a cryptocurrency, which is a use case of blockchain, has been a lot of media hype as well as regulatory scrutiny. But we will keep this conversation with Reena more from a general person's perspective, asking questions with the curiosity of a child and skepticism of a professional. And we will also see what these different elements and dimensions of blockchain are. Blockchain and the allied fields today is a very wide topic, and we have limited time. So we will try to cover various aspects of this, things like cryptocurrency, things like NFTs, DAOs. We will look at smart contracts and various other elements of this whole ecosystem, which is rapidly evolving. And what we will also try and understand is, and based on the discussion that we have today, is what the future looks for these technologies and how, as enterprise, we can adopt these technologies or leverage these technologies in our workings and benefit the consumer at the end. So in this context, what we are going to discuss, and blockchain essentially started with the 2008 31st of October, when pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto shared his white paper on Bitcoin with the mailing list, and that's where started this whole discussion. And of course, there are things which we will talk about in terms of digital money or e-cash. We'll talk about things which are more aligned to the technology space in cryptography, as well as what is this blockchain all about. So let me start, Reena, with you and asking you this basic question as to what is blockchain and what prompted it, so much of buzz that we hear today.
So first of all, thank you for inviting me for this session. Very glad to be here. And good afternoon, everyone, almost evening. So, blockchain is, we hear about the distributed ledger system. It is essentially that it is a, something which is shareable, distributed, and which is non-changeable. So, once you, and which makes it very, very suitable for asset management or even for establishing trust among parties which are otherwise unknown or not, or whom you cannot implicitly trust, right? So this is the interesting aspect of blockchain, the fact that it is shareable, it is distributed, and it allows for trust mechanism establishment among parties who may not normally know each other, and there is no a formal contract in place amongst all those parties. Then there is a lot of activity that can happen on this system. And that is what gives rise to a large number of use cases, including, the digital currency as an asset, right? Which is where the cryptocurrency comes in. Now, there are various kinds of blockchains, right? I mean, maybe I'll touch a little bit on that. You could have like a public blockchain. Bitcoin is the best example of a public blockchain. Anybody who has access to the network can participate, essentially. So anybody who has access to the internet today can participate. You could have private networks, which is, let's say I'm a manufacturing entity. I want to set up a supply chain setup with where I'm the lead entity and I want to take all the decisions, but I want my suppliers to be part of that network. Now, this network that I set up using underlying blockchain would be a good example of a private network. The third is, of course, a federated network, which is typically, people must have heard a lot about blockchain consortia. So wherever there are consortia which are working together, where the decision is not just with one entity, but, several entities, and yet it is private in nature. It is not publicly, it's not like a public network. That's a federated network. And of course, you have hybrid networks which try to bring in different elements of the private network. Portions could be private, portions could be public, portions could be federated, so enabling almost like an interchange across different blockchain networks. That's the hybrid model that is there. And it's interesting to know about these models because they enable different kinds of use cases, and therefore they are useful.
Wonderful. Thanks, Reena. And in fact, you kind of partially covered my next question, which was around the types of blockchains. But again, wonderful to understand that there are public blockchains, there are private blockchains, and then there are federated blockchains. And again, there are and consortium, but again, essentially mean the same thing as public, private, and federated blockchains. And to our audience, what we would recommend is that this is a conversation, so please feel free to type in your questions into the chat box, whether you are on YouTube with us or whether you're on the Zoom link with us. And we have a team which will again filter these questions, and some of them I can see, especially on the Zoom, but for others, the team will filter them, and we will have that shared with Reena for her comments and views on that. So this is the conversation, and please, we welcome all participation. So coming on, sorry, yeah, Reena.
No, I was saying absolutely. Questions are absolutely welcome.
Thank you. So in terms of okay, we got a question, Vivek. I will come to this question, Vivek. We've taken note of it. So coming to the next question, in terms of the types and the use cases, if you can elaborate more on some of the prevalent use cases currently happening, say in industry or in consumer space, and again, what are those key leading use cases in currently or in future that you see will work out of this blockchain technology?
Absolutely. So I think one of the most popular and most well-known use case is cryptocurrency, right? So, how do you have a digital currency which takes advantage of this distributed and non-changeable aspect of the blockchain, and plays a big role in international money transfer, in terms of international transactions, because what it does is blockchain, by the very nature of how it executes, how it treats assets, and how smart contracts, and we'll come to what smart contracts are, but how smart contracts are executed, it removes the need for a large number of intermediaries. So wherever there is a need for speeding up the process, making it less complex, while maintaining a lot of security about the ownership of the asset, that's a good example. That's a very, very strong use case for blockchain, and hence cryptocurrency is a default, the use case which made blockchain very popular. The other use cases are things like supply chain, for example, right? Now, we know in supply chains, there's a lot of contractual obligations, there are a lot of intermediaries, but for speeding up supply chains and for keeping alternates the risk management aspect of supply chain, all of that automated to a larger extent, you could use blockchain. So let me talk about a smart contract right now. So smart contract is essentially it's a digital contract where which is automated in the sense that as soon as the conditions of the contract are met, certain steps can be taken. So typically what happens in a contract is, let's say, goods are being supplied and then payment has to be made, right? And goods have to be supplied. Somebody has to validate that the goods are of high quality. The quality check has happened, and all the okays are given. Then certain other aspects of the process need to take over, not just making payment, but maybe some other aspects of the process need to take over. If you have a smart contract without getting into too much of human intervention and getting into intermediaries, these things can happen automatically. Because of the fact that it is non-changeable, it's also very useful for tracing materials. You could be your own inventory, or it could be tracing how, let's say, a social aid project is there. There's a huge amount of money which is being allocated for providing, and the money has to go down the. Let's say it's at the United Nations level, and the money has to go down across multiple steps and get distributed to the right people. Because blockchain provides you complete traceability and non-changeability, I think it has a huge role in ensuring that every single cent, every single paisa of such a initiative actually gets utilized for the right purposes. If you look at insurance claims, this whole problem of multiple insurance claims, same person may actually go ahead and claim with different agencies. Now, if you have systems implemented on blockchain, you can actually reduce all those frauds from happening. So, so there are a huge amount of use cases. We can just sort of look at an industry problem, and there might be a possibility of some form of the other, right? Now in Web 3. Maybe I don't want to make it too complex. So this is some of the examples of the use cases that we could look at. Nirupam, do you want me to talk about any one in specific? I would be happy to do that.
Sure. No, I think it's a wonderful, I mean, you talked about 2-3 cases, and let me, kind of rephrase for that we understand it. I understand it better, and also in case audience had some gaps, they can. So one is obviously you talked about is around disintermediation, which is the money, the Bitcoin example, the money example. So if I have to give money to you, currently I have the money goes to my bank, from my bank to your bank, and then to you, and vice versa. Whereas in case of a Bitcoin, it can directly move from you to me and me to you. So it's essentially disintermediating the entire. If we are sitting across countries and across currencies, then it disintermediates also the money exchangers and currency exchangers in the process, which essentially takes a lot of time and cost. So that's a very good example from a money perspective. And the second you talked about is also you talked about the traceability part, which is the flow of money. So if money has gone for some, say, you talk about CSR work or United Nations work, then you can have a traceability as to where that money is going, which is a bit missing currently when you talk of cash and other things, because not everybody is banked. So there's a good element of traceability into it. And obviously the smart contracts you talked about is, again, this is a topic in itself, which essentially is like once, the entire contracting and the legal part can be taken via software, in which it becomes very efficient and faster. So this is essentially, again, one of the things which I wanted to understand from you is, so there are lots of new terminologies I keep listening every day, like Web 3.0, Metaverse. So if you can elaborate on these and how they are linked to this blockchain, and of course I'm getting a lot of questions on it, so we will take those. Please keep writing those questions. But if you can just start with the Web 3.0 and Metaverse, especially after the Facebook changed its name to Meta, what do you make of it, and how are they connected?
So I think personally, I'm not very hung up on the terminologies. I find them a little bit distracting, but I'll explain what it means and why the terminology is being used. I think the terminology Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, etc. is used to define a certain stage in the development of the internet. So I think if you look initially when the internet started, it was a lot about consumption. There's a lot of stuff that was being put there. A lot of stuff was read only. You go to a website, somebody's created a website which is sharing a lot of information, and you are able to get that information. Those were the early stages of the internet. Then as the internet evolved, there was a lot more two-way communication that started happening. You could not only consume content, but you also provided content. So, everybody became a content provider. And this Web 2.0 also saw the rise of this whole social media, the Facebooks and Twitter and everything else that, that you see all around us. Web 3.0 is now a terminology being used to describe the fact that the players and the actors on the internet are no longer just people, it is people and things. Things means, other machines, other software, other hardware, and all of that. So Web 3.0, there's a lot of content, content maybe, because it has certain connotation. I would say, don't think of it as content as in media content, but, whatever you get as content on the internet, could be data of some form, is going to be getting consumed not just by human beings, but also by machines and other software programs. And in turn, everybody, including human beings and these software programs and these Internet of Things or devices, they're all providing content back to the internet. Now, just to help you visualize this, think of a drone, which is going into, let's say, a hazardous area and is sending content images back from there, which are getting uploaded onto the net, and then they are being processed in some manner. Plus any data that may be streaming from sensors, which could be atmospheric sensors or any other sensors which are coming back to the network, right? So the content is essentially coming from everywhere and it is going everywhere in that sense. That is Web 3.0. There's also a lot of distributed intelligence that is part of Web 3.0. So the network, there are two essential aspects of that. One is that the nodes themselves are becoming more and more intelligent. So there is intelligence being built into the network, whether we're talking about, the various network devices itself and so on. And then there is also computational intelligence, which is part of this distributed network, so to say, because a lot of stuff is on the cloud, and there is a layer of intelligence which is being built into the cloud very, very consciously. So not only do you deal with data, you also do inference and analysis of that data. And then you take action on top of that, because you're consuming content as well as generating content. So a machine gives you data, you look at that data, you take certain decisions, and a software program may take certain decisions. There may be some inputs coming in from human beings. Those together go back to some machine to take some other action, right? So that whole cycle of intelligence, data input and output, all of that is happening on this distributed environment. The reason why the technology progresses in the manner that we see it progress is not because of one or two things. It happens because there is a lot of underlying changes that happen to propel from, let's say, Web 1.0 to 2.0 and 3.0. A very fundamental need is the speed of the network, and we've seen, and connectivity, right? So over a period of time, we've seen much broader connectivity across the world. And also the fact that, so many sensors are actually already connected to the network. Plus, the fact that there are cloud services available everywhere. So Web 3.0 is happening because of not just one thing. It's happening because telecom has progressed. It's because we have smartphones everywhere. It's because sensor technology has progressed in a much bigger way. It's because artificial intelligence and machine learning has progressed. And more importantly, because cloud computing has reached a certain stage. We now have the extension of the cloud in space, surrounding our planet as well. So the same cloud, right? Network. So it's reached a certain stage from that aspect. Now, personally, I feel that you cannot really say Web 3.0 starts here, Web 2.0 ends here. So I'm much more comfortable treating it as a continuum. And for me, it's more important to understand what's really happening right now. Do we understand the underlying technologies and the changes that are happening right now? And if we do, then it doesn't matter whether we call it Web 3.0 and then when will it start moving to Web 4.0. That becomes a little less relevant, but these technologies help us, these terminologies help us keep a little bit of track of the advancements, and so they are useful in that sense. That's the part. I think you wanted me to talk about the metaverse in this context as well. All right. So now, apart from this, so now that we have the network capacity to actually, especially with 5G coming in, there is a lot more real-time response that people can experience. With that, and the fact that, these virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality technologies have also reached a certain stage of maturity. Suddenly, so this happened. Then one more thing happened, COVID happened. So 2 years ago, if before COVID, how many of us were attending webinars which were online? Yes, some of us were attending webinars like this one online, but look at how most of these conferences and webinars have completely shifted online. That happened because COVID happened, right? And suddenly, video technology, video conferencing, we got used to it, and it suddenly doesn't seem like, oh, you know what, I will do it only under extreme circumstances. Otherwise, I want to go in person and attend, right? So the vendors were also forced to improve the quality. They were also forced to, make this much more meaningful with the right kind of interactions, right? You can now add a smiley, you can clap, and while the session is happening, and all of that can be done, which you couldn't do with earlier technologies. So the experience is already becoming richer. Now, so that has happened. Now, when that is happening, there's this conversation happening. We have these mixed reality, augmented reality technologies. Wouldn't it be nicer, if I could, with Nirupam and me sitting like this, if we had our virtual avatars sitting in front of each other, and the audience could be a virtual audience as well with your avatars, right? So that you get a even better feeling of being online. So that's what happened. I think everybody started, all the technology companies started working on the next level of communication, next level of social applications. How could we make this into a three-dimensional world, right? Now, some of the technology is good, but it's not great today, right? So I think from a metaverse perspective, this technology is going to evolve. The experience is going to get better. This seems to be the fun part. Gaming has already been a virtual world, right? You look at games, they are virtual worlds of certain sort. And, if you put on a HoloLens or, any other device, you're also, sort of getting into more deeply involved in the game. So in that sense, that aspect of the metaverse was always there for some years now. But now, you want to do that, bring it closer to, create make these virtual worlds more accessible. I mean, virtual worlds have been there for some time as well, at least a decade. It's now that, people are making bigger announcement around bringing this kind of technology to video conferencing, to meetings, to not just games, but even the social media. And therefore, that is what everybody thinks about. If you ask me, the real advantage of something like a metaverse is hidden in deeper technologies, things which we discussed about a little earlier, like, think of robotic telepresence. When a nuclear disaster happened, for example, the kind that happened in Japan, if you have a metaverse capability where a robot is moving around in that space and you are seeing and understanding what is happening, and you're able to, take action remotely with high fidelity, right? That's also metaverse, right? But that's also something that allows you better control. So there are different kinds of use cases. Remote robotic surgery, for example, right? Where you also get haptic feedback, so you can sort of get a sense of the touch and feel of the instruments and how the robot is actually doing it while you're doing it remotely. That's going to be another great use case for this mixed reality. Already, if you see, there are field agents, right, who go to the field and may not have the technical expertise of something. They already are doing mixed reality projections back to their head office, where somebody who's an expert is sitting with them on a video call and telling them, okay, take out that green wire that is there. That's the one you need to take out and, sort of fit it somewhere else. And sorry for the long answer, but metaverse has so many connotations, and because we're talking about a distributed environment, and with certain speeds and real-time responses that are possible, I think that's something which we'll see a lot more as we move forward.
No, I think this is, you covered a lot of questions in one answer. I think this is wonderful. And of course, some people consider Web 1.0 as read-only web and Web 2.0 as more of a user-generated content web, and Web 3.0 as immersive web. But you are saying, and you're rightly saying, that treat this as one continuum instead of being a separate silos. Essentially, I could actually call Zoom as a metaverse, right? So we are sitting in a metaverse and chatting in a metaverse. I can see you, you can see me. A crude form of metaverse, I would call it. Maybe in future I can wear a glove and you can wear a glove and we can shake hands virtually. Where I will get a haptic feedback that you are shaking my hand and you will get the same. So obviously a lot of stuff is being done today in this technology space. And you talked about the surgery, where again people can do remote surgeries and surgeons without being actually there and get a haptic feedback. Haptic is getting the senses back on that space. So I think lots and lots of applications, rightly, and I think military applications are already there, right? So we get live footages of wars, and unfortunately some of them are happening right now. But even otherwise, lots of intelligence is built into different vehicles or aeroplanes or drones, as we call them. So the edge computing and AI is especially playing a big role in the entire concept. I would now take your view on the underlying technology of this blockchain, which is around cryptography. So, what is your view on this? Obviously, cryptography keeps evolving, but what we are also seeing is the quantum computing coming in, and what quantum computing is set to actually be able to break all these cryptographic codes, which are very difficult to break by the traditional computing methods. So if that happens, really, then does this whole world evaporate, because whatever this technology is based on cryptography will no longer be secure? What's your view on that?
Yeah, so very interesting topic, and it's very, in the quantum circles, so to say, this is the hot topic right now, as to how do we prepare for post-quantum cryptography, right? So first of all, answering your first question, I think when you look at blockchain, the security in blockchain typically uses asymmetric key encryption and hash algorithms, right? Now, both of these are top of the class, and currently, if you're not thinking about quantum, they're very, very secure. We're talking about very secure technology. But then, as we discuss about quantum, the day we have, today we have quantum computers with certain number of qubits that are available. We do not have a scalable quantum computer. So we don't have a quantum computer which has thousands of qubits, for example, right? But the day we have a scalable quantum computer, we know for a fact that certain algorithms in quantum, like the Grover's search algorithm, will actually enable us, and Shor's algorithm will allow us to actually break both RSA 2048 today, which is supposed to be unbreakable, and also a certain number of hash algorithms, right? So if we look at this fact that when the scalable quantum computer is going to be available, we need to plan for algorithms which will be quantum safe. That is what the quantum cryptography area today is focusing on. In fact, NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards for Technology in the US, is just issued a paper around the kind of algorithms that they are recommending for post-quantum cryptography, right? Now, bringing the question back to blockchain, this is not just about blockchain. Anywhere in the network, on the server, on the cloud, wherever you're using any of these algorithms, which is almost everywhere, and including in the blockchain, RSA and the hash algorithms, those algorithms need to be replaced to be ready for post-quantum cryptography. So I think that's the preparation that needs to happen. That's the senior level. If you look at right now, the government agencies, the international agencies, they're all gearing up for this post-quantum cryptography. There are governments who are laying out plans for saying, what will post-quantum, what is our preparedness for post-quantum cryptography? How are we going to be working towards it? Large organizations, right? Banks, people with sensitive information, anybody who has a huge setup, cloud service providers, all of them are looking at how they're going to solve this problem and already working on it. And already there are certain algorithms that are available, which we know for now that they are, we believe that they will be quantum safe. Of course, we know, we have seen over historically that when you work on cryptography, something that seems safe today, as computing paradigms change, that becomes unsafe and we migrate to another technology. So I don't think that is going to change. Even after we have the first level of algorithms for quantum safe algorithms for cryptography, we will probably still be evolving as we move forward, right? So that's where we are. I think blockchain experts and cryptography experts both have to work together to make sure that the blockchains continue to be secure in the post-quantum world.
So thanks again, great answer. So essentially, we are not saying the world will move back. Essentially, world will move forward with the newer technologies of encryption as the newer technologies of breaking that encryption comes in. So essentially, we will be in the same situation, but with a different, higher advanced technology. So coming to the next question, and again, this is a very hot topic in discussions these days, and you can guess it, it's on NFTs. Ever since the people painting got sold for some $66 million, and then after that, Bored Ape Yacht Club and different NFTs come into play, and people think it's transfer of ownership, it's ownership of digital assets and whatnot. And some people think it's more into communities and building a communities and being part of the community. And a lot of people also talk of these NFTs as transforming the arts world, the artists and the creators, and getting them rightly incentivized. So if you can start with what this NFT thing is, and is it like another tulip bubble, or is it something tangible, and how is it going to transform different domains?
So good. I think those are great questions. NFT, starting with the most simple one, NFTs are non-fungible tokens, as you might know. These are essentially tokens which are associated with an asset, which is a digital asset, and uniquely identified with that asset. And they leverage this property of non-changeability, which is a feature of the underlying blockchain technology. So you can do a lot of things with that. Once you could look at digital rights, right, which is what NFTs provide. It could help with issues of copyright and IP of digital entities and things like that. Like in the artwork, the original is important, the copies are not as important, right? So in the same way, how does, and there has been a fair amount of challenges in the NFT communities because everything is evolving and there have been problems and copies have been made and all kinds of claims have also been made. So, like every other technology is going through certain cycle. There is also a hype, I believe, right? While there is a hype, and it is also changing the way art is getting perceived. And so what is happening is all of this popular pop culture art, right? All of this gaming art associated with gaming and the nerds, all of them who are, there's this, what do the nerds value? All of these things which were not mainstream art is now becoming more prominent because of NFTs, because these are the people who are more actively engaging with this technology first. right? That is one. Then there is also this, so, something which has a geeky connotation is art. And if you are an art connoisseur of the past, you may look at it and say, why the hell is this art, right? But then that's how this whole new medium is actually creating a different interpretation of art, right? And art has been like that for centuries. So who are we to, sort of question that? Because even when modern art emerged, people were like, who's drawing these? Why are you drawing these triangles and circles, and what do they mean? But we know that that has been an evolution for art, and it's something which is very valuable as we look back. Similarly, as we move forward, who knows where this will go? So there is this whole art angle. The second angle is around hype. The hype is that while there's an actual art angle which will sort of consolidate over a period of time, I see it becoming like mainstream, in a certain sense, getting recognized as an art angle, as type of art, and new research happening in that space, and how evolution of art will happen. But then there is also this, because NFTs are for everyone, because the public blockchain network is for everyone, everybody is jumping in, and some people are, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, is that some are just being blown away by the whole thing. Okay, right? Okay, I have money to spend, and because it is cryptocurrency, it doesn't feel like hard cash, because you bought one, you bought it for $10 and it is now $1 lakh, right? So you're like, you don't feel guilty spending $100,000 out of that, because it doesn't translate mentally as much, right? So maybe some of it is happening because of that there is this whole trading that is happening at ridiculous prices. Question is, will the value of that art remain as is, or is it going to change? We must not forget the fact that right now we are going through a deep dive of the cryptocurrency values, right? Compared to December, in the beginning of December, right? So market cap for cryptocurrencies in the beginning of December was around 3 trillion, which is almost the same as the GDP for India in 2022. And right now, today, today, if you check, it is 1.7 trillion. That's an erosion of 1.3 trillion US dollars over a period of 2 months. So, there's a lot of fluctuation that is going on there. And this is not just the cryptocurrencies. The NFTs will, sort of also, because they're associated with the cryptocurrencies, they also will undergo these changes as in terms of value, if you translate that to fiat currency. So it's a little bit of a it's choppy waters, I would say, for now, and needs to settle down.
No, good point. In fact, the Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies were kind of positioned as the safe reserve. This is something which no central bank has control of, and when the value will not drop, because obviously Bitcoin is limited in numbers. But even otherwise, that people will use this instead of the fiat currency, which is deflationary in the sense inflation reduces its value. So, but I also see a lot of jokes in the last 2 days and even maybe a week from now, where people said, you can lose, if you keep cash, you lose 7% due to inflation in a year. And if you invest in stock market and something like the war event happens and you lose around 7% of that value in a day, like yesterday it kind of went on the 5% in the Indian stock markets. And but if you invest in crypto, you can lose 7% in 30 minutes, right? So, so the kind of volatility in these assets is, if I were to call them as assets, is crazy, and it's and another joke which goes like this, that I did not want it to lose my money to inflation. Because the government is printing money like anything, so I thought of investing in crypto, and now I have beaten that, and I have lost 50% of my portfolio in crypto, and that's actually reality. A lot of people I know, and the markets data is there, have lost more than 50% of the value in crypto investments. And for the audience here, we are not giving any investment advice. We are just discussing what is happening in the markets. Okay, so please do your own research in case you want to go in this or not go in this. The risk is yours and reward is also yours. So coming to the next question, Reena, and this is around another philosophical question, and usually touted, and people are somewhat fanatic about it. And this topic is around decentralization. So in crypto communities, and I'm part of a lot of them. So I see people, it's something like, you see capitalist versus communist debates. It's something of that sort where people say, no, the advantage of decentralization versus centralized, whether it's central bank or whether it's somebody else, is there. And now they actually want, even for the organizations, they want the organizations to operate decentralized way. In fact, many organizations do operate in a decentralized way, especially if they grow big and they're across different countries. No organization can really work in a centralized way. But now they have started creating what is called as a decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs. So if you can elaborate a bit on that, and if that links to a DeFi discussion, so what is the decentralized finance around it? About it. So whatever is convenient to you, if you can share your thoughts around this.
So I would like to believe that I'm somewhere in the middle. I have a very balanced view about this. I don't really feel very strongly either ways, and I'll tell you why. I think there are some merits to the aspect of decentralization. As we move towards a much more connected world, and we want to look at ease of doing business across the world. We want to look at ease of being able to help people across the world. And the current war that is happening is really unfortunate. It's like you suddenly we reached a stage in the world order where we didn't feel that it comes as a shock, right, that there is actually invasion happening somewhere. But otherwise, there are two aspects to this. Once you decentralize, we talked about so many use cases. So in the globalization context, it provides a lot of ease, and it allows a reduction of intermediaries. It also, it does counter inflation, which makes sense. But at the same time, we must remember that the cryptocurrency environment right now is comprising of two different kinds of currencies. There are currencies which are based on completely well managed and very, very extensive blockchain networks as the base. So for example, Ethereum, has a very, very strong base of a blockchain network where multiple consortia are using for enterprise applications as well, right? So one is there is a currency built on that same base, but then there are also these other consortia which are able to leverage that same currency, but at the same time are creating value in other ways from that same network. Now, by any standard, when you look at an environment like this, where there are multiple entities which are supporting each other in a way, the stability of that currency is likely to go up. So again, don't take me, this is not from an investment advice perspective. I'm nobody to give investment advice. I don't invest in cryptocurrency. Okay. But at the same time, there are tons of other currencies out there which are, non-serious currencies, in the sense that you look at their value, it fluctuates like crazy over a period of time, right? And forget the change that has happened right now, but there are other, and people are not aware. So people just look at the name and they run on the fact. I mean, what was happening to Dogecoin a while ago? The value was increasing based on an Elon Musk tweet. You could just see Twitter and you can actually do buy and sell for Dogecoin at, that was like 6 months ago. And that's crazy. You don't want something which is financial in nature to be moving in that manner. At some level, I feel that, regulations have to come in for cryptocurrencies. I don't believe that you need to do away with them. I feel that there is value and merit in them, but they need to be regulated and they need to be restricted. You cannot have a country's GDPs, 1/3 of a country's GDP, for example, being subject to the fluctuations that are associated with cryptocurrency. So it needs to be restricted. It needs to be, kept at a limit. and it needs to be regulated, but there is definitely merit in having them. There's already so much involvement of people around the world that I don't think you can just do away with it. I don't think that's correct also. Yeah. Those are my views, and maybe questionable. Today, everybody can have a view on this, and nobody really knows what the right answer will turn out to be. Yeah.
Sure. No, I think obviously this is something which is very, very dicey, if I were to use that word, because whatever the premise of being a stable global cryptocurrency was there has been shattered in the recent events, and I kind of fairly think because and in fact we were having a discussion in another group I was having with. See, central bank's job is to have a stable currency system, but unfortunately that role is missing in the decentralized space and the cryptocurrency. So it's nobody's job to make sure the currency is relatively stable, and that actually is in the hands of exchanges, and exchanges would actually like volatility because more the volatility, more the trades, and more the margins and the brokerage they get on it. So it's a I must say the reward system on this part of stabilizing a currency is probably needs to be built into the blockchain cryptocurrency world.
But traceability is amazing, right? So if you want to stop money flowing into dubious things, or money coming from dubious, all the things that we want to prevent in this world. We want to prevent terrorism, we want to prevent misuse, child labor and stuff like that. And when you have financial transactions, traditional financial transactions, your traceability is maybe 2 steps away either side, not more than that. But then in a blockchain, you have infinite traceability, and exchanges can implement that. I mean, there are analytics tools that are coming up, getting better and better, forensic tools that are getting better and better over a period of time. So it is actually possible to trace up to multiple levels, and that's where central banks can actually come in and regulate and sort of use that power to actually create more transparency and let money move in the right direction for positive good.
Sure. So I have a couple of more questions, but I will stop my question and I will take the questions which the audience chat has come in. And in case we still have time, I will come back to my questions. Vivek Chauhan asked, how is blockchain related to metaverse? I think we answered that, so I will skip this and move to the next question. Vivek, feel free to write more on the chat in case you have a particular question around this. Monica asks the question, what impact will it have on the current functioning of finance and account departments? So we are actually getting a lot of questions on use case. So any thoughts around how would finance and accounts change with blockchain technology and maybe crypto? What's your view?
So financial systems have to be geared up to be able to deal with crypto. Finance and accounts, depending on how this gets regulated or accepted or banned or whatever happens, finance and accounts departments will have to treat it like any other currency, right? You'll still be dealing with fiat currency. You will also be dealing with, this format of currency and the rules and regulations that come along with it. So all the financial and accounting systems that we have, again, we are speculating a lot here. If that happens, then all of those will have to account for how money is going to flow from a cryptocurrency perspective. And the Central Bank of India, the Central Bank in India, which is the RBI, is actually announced its own CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, right? So that will also come into the picture.
Absolutely. In fact, this is one topic we missed in some sense. So yes, so CBDCs will come in, and CBDCs will offer the virtually same benefits that cryptocurrency offers, but with the backing of a regulator or a central bank. So essentially that will in some sense give all these benefits of a trustless transaction based system, which is currently on Bitcoin or Ether or other crypto stuff, will also be in some sense available on the central bank digital currency, and that actually will lower the transaction costs and probably create another level of efficiency in the whole economy. So But again, there are again a couple of my colleagues also ask, when can we have an ERP on blockchain? I tell them it's pretty much far away because the crypto is still not to that extent scalable, and of course we are solving that problem of crypto and blockchain, doing large volumes of transactions. But I think, as you rightly mentioned in your initial answer, that decentralization versus centralization middle path probably is a better choice. Let me move on to the
Yeah,
next.
and I don't think it's as much a technology problem as it is a regulation problem right now.
True. And Nirmala Sitharaman in the current budget speech actually is the taxation. It's moving in the more direction of regulation. So I'm sure they will come up with some regulation sooner or later. Avi Munjal asked this question. Can you please elaborate on the benefits of using blockchain for supply chain vendors and examples? I think you gave that example. Manufacturers adopted blockchain, so I will again skip this. Moving on to the next. Please feel, Avi, if you have any particular question, please feel free to add in. And in case we have time, we will revisit this. Sandeep Pandita wants to know, blockchain technology in the manufacturing industry can be influenced. So this is the use case around manufacturing. Do you see blockchain being used in manufacturing sector, and what use case you think could be?
Of course, supply chain, materials management, tracking assets, especially, if there's a lot of subparts to be assembled together, then linking the supply chain to the inventory, to the shop floor, all of that for unique identification of every nut and bolt, so to say. I think it can be used for that. It can also be used for the larger supply chain network and of the manufacturing entity. So that is an obvious, and logistics as well. So yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there was second part of question, which is, and where can we get this start from? So I think the answer is start with the logistics and supply chain. That would be the best approach, right?
Yes, in fact, I don't know if Anshul, you could bring up that slide that I had. I think this is the right time to bring up that slide and talk about when to implement blockchain. So there's this very interesting slide, which is not mine, by the way. I may have recreated it, but it's borrowed from a World Economic Forum report. And it's a couple of years old, but it is very relevant. What it says is that, there are two aspects to blockchain implementation. One is it is, like we've been discussing, it's very useful technology. But then everything, and depending on the scale of operations of a company in a particular area, you may or may not find it as the most rewarding technology, right? So, so this is a chart that was created by people who were participating in the World Economic Forum blockchain initiative, saying that, are you trying to remove intermediaries, for example? No, then do not use blockchain, because this will remove intermediaries. You will have to create extra functionality to bring them in, which doesn't make any sense. Are you working on physical assets or virtual assets, right? Can you create a permanent record for an asset, like a digital record? If you can, if you cannot do for that, then you cannot translate a physical entity into a digital entity as a unique element, then you cannot use blockchain. You require high performance. So this is, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but there are a series of questions to ask depending upon the size of your network, depending on who are the players. And when CXOs, like the CIO or the CTO, is actually looking at this technology, this is the kind of conversation that should happen with a large set of people who are the stakeholders on the, the person who's handling manufacturing, the person who's in charge of supply chain, and look at the problems that they have today and see which of those problems can be removed by, including blockchain. And whether the return on investment is going to make sense in that sense, right? That depends on the scale, right? And if you have just 5 suppliers and you've always worked with them and everything is already well synchronized, do you want to shift to blockchain? I don't know. I mean, it depends on what, maybe you do, because you may be planning some completely revamping some of this, adding in more suppliers, whatever is your transformation goal in the longer term, it has to be in line with that. So thanks, Anshul, you can remove that now. Yeah.
So thank you, Reena. I think Sandeep. So you know the answer now. Please, either you should have taken a screenshot of this while it was on, or please visit the World Economic Forum metrics and follow these steps and see where you want to start it. So moving on to the next question, I have from Professor PJ Matthews. He says, can the documents be transferred for custom purpose? I think the answer is absolutely yes, but you want to add on?
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's a simple question.
Moving on to the next, so Vivek has clarified on his question, so let me take that. How blockchain can be implemented and used to enhance learning and development / training area as implemented? Okay, so this is a good question. I think certificates is a big application of traceability, blockchain, and all that, right?
Sure. Also identity, right? I mean, there's a larger use case of identity, distributed identity management. I can own my own records. And if that is implemented, then my learning and everything can be aligned, and I can be the custodian of my learning journey. So all certificates, etc., can be owned by me. And that itself, because it's coming through the blockchain, is proof that these are valid certificates and there's no fraud involved. I think the whole issue about learning is in that space. There is another angle. The whole the entire learning content that is available today, digital rights are not very well managed. They are managed, but then there is also a lot of content which gets photocopied. There is content which is not meant to be copied and it gets copied, and PDFs get made and all of that. I think blockchain also helps in better digital rights management and can help with managing learning content from that perspective, also prevent duplication and things like that. Yeah. Okay, so if you are a learning management company, then you are concerned with the IP of your content, right? So then you would find it useful from that perspective.
Yeah, and you can also build a learning studio in the metaverse and do something around that. So a couple of options there, but in interest of time, let me move to the next question from DD Goyalji, and he has asked a very interesting question. So he says, please explain some basic differentials of blockchain technology vis-a-vis existing technology. And he clarifies that I am a CA and totally naive at technology vocabulary / jargons. So Reena, over to you, and then I may add some fun part.
So I would want to go back to the original definition, which says distributed or shareable. So distributed means, it is on the network, it is shareable, other people can access it, right? That is one feature of the blockchain. The second is non-changeable. So once I have defined an asset on the blockchain, I have defined something that cannot be changed by anybody. It can be changed as a part of the process, but it cannot be its original, and that original entity itself cannot be changed. Like if you have a written ledger, since you're from finance, if you have a written ledger, if you are doing a bookkeeping on a book on actual paper, somebody can erase and rewrite, right? Although you might be able to make out, but somebody might do it very well and you can't make out, right? So records are changed. In an online system also, administrators sometimes have rights to work with the database at the back end. And while there is, for most financial systems, there's a huge amount of checks and balances in place, and we don't expect things to change in retrospect. But there is always this danger that, when money is, let's say, flowing, there could be some changes that happen afterwards, right? In the case of blockchain, that's not possible. You cannot go back and erase something that has been executed earlier or change it in any manner, because it requires the consensus of a large number of nodes or large number of entities. And even then, the way the software is written, it doesn't allow you to do that, right? So, I hope you understand. So this is just, technology which is being leveraged to create these special features, which allows for better asset management, for better contractual kind of relationships. Think of an environment like, if there are 10 different entities that get together, and one has to supply something to B, and B has to supply something to C. And these entities do not really know each other, but they want to come in this common marketplace and say, I'm giving you the lowest deal, and do you want to take it, right? Now, typically when the entities are not well known, you will be hesitant. You want to do a lot of due diligence in the real world to sort of figure out how to establish trust, and very, very extensive contractual obligations have to be put into the picture to make sure that you can trust these entities. Now, in a blockchain, the way the technology is written, a lot of players can participate. You may not know these players, but the environment of trust is created through those through the processes within the software that is written, as well as the fact that you could have smart contracts, which means that any payouts can happen only when somebody has executed certain actions that they're supposed to do. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that you can take risks like, hey, I don't know who the supplier is. In a supply chain network, you can't take the kind of risks that I'm talking about, because the supplier not supplying on time is a downstream risk for you for timely manufacturing of something else, right? And has huge repercussions from a cost perspective. So this is not about that. It's about when there are a lot of parties who are, a good example is like Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency. A lot of parties want to exchange information. I may not know who it is, but I'm transferring, buying an NFT from someone and transferring money. It happens in a manner which is secured by the technology. So that's how it is.
So again, we're kind of running on the time now. So let me take this last question. And there's a very similar question which from Priyanka has come, which you actually already answered, but she has taken a specific part of SAP versus blockchain. And I think you already answered in terms of that it's centralized versus decentralized and immutable versus non-immutable systems. So SAP is essentially a centralized system and blockchain is decentralized. And you can go and change back. Of course, there's audit trail, but you can do that in SAP, which you can't do that in blockchain. Once the transaction is recorded, you can't really change it. And another last question I would take is, which is from Mr. Anil Sahu, says, please discuss future aspects of digital currency versus crypto versus digital asset. So this is more future gazing, and with that kind of last question.
That's like the Pandora's box question. I don't know what the future will be for any of these, right? I know NFTs are here to stay. I feel that, especially NFT art, I think there is a proper use case, I feel, for that. Cryptocurrencies, I don't know what to say. I don't know if you're following the news, then there were some statements made by people from RBI and saying how dangerous. These are not my words. They made certain statements about why it should be banned, right? So there are viewpoints and there are considerations. If you look across the world, some governments are embracing cryptocurrency. Some are being cautious about it. Some of them are, still considering. Others are questioning it. So it's at a very, very very, very flux state right now. We have to see how it will evolve, and I don't think I'm the right person to do that forecasting. I'm a technology person. I'm not really a financial person, and this is something which is sitting at the cusp of finance and government regulations and things like that. So very difficult to say what will happen. It will be there, I think, for a long time. I don't think it's going to go away. So that much I can say. And what was the third thing? Cryptocurrency and the central bank currencies. Central bank currencies. Digital assets. Digital assets. So we all own digital assets, right? You pay for license fees for software. That's a digital asset for you. Just because we now are thinking in terms of blockchain, that doesn't change anything. You own, there is still digital art which is owned. It's not as if that has come only with NFTs. Digital art has been there for some time. There are people who paint digitally only, right? And they do remarkable paintings, and their paintings sell for high value and all of that. So that's there. I recently have seen people doing virtual reality painting, right? Three-dimensional painting in virtual environments, and then that becomes an art. So some evolution is going to happen there, I believe.
Sure. Again, I'm still getting a lot of very interesting questions, but in interest of time, I would suggest we close this session. And again, thank you, Reena, for such elucidating this whole concept in such a simple and easy to understand way. And I'm sure a lot of people would have now really started thinking, how to use this in their own domains, as we see in the questions. In learning and development, in accounting and finance, and another question came on the civil and construction side, and then obviously there are lots and lots of application finance side. So lot of stuff, I think is interesting, and obviously some people want to invest in it also as a whatever you want to call it, speculation or investment. I don't know, but. So I think this is quite interesting, and in fact there are a lot of dimensions which we did not cover today. Maybe some other day we should catch up again and probably look at those dimensions and see. But again, this was a thoroughly wonderful session for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and again, thank you and thank you the Mind team for setting this whole up. There was Sundra, Anshul, Hariom, and a couple of other people who have Astha. Ajay. So again, thank you all, and thank you, Reena, for being such a
Thank you very much.
speaker.
I absolutely enjoyed the discussion, and thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure, all us, and hopefully from this metaverse in physical verse we can also catch up someday. But again, wonderful connecting here at least.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.